Well, my next guest knows political strategy and communications as well as anyone. Jennifer Palmieri was White House Communications Director for President Obama and head of communications for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. So, Jen, clearly the DNC sees political opportunity here, what with the poll numbers combined with last week's jobs numbers. But how do they capitalize on it?
I think I see two things happening here in terms of the public's reaction to what Trump is doing. One is that the issue they care the most about, and the issue that he used to have an advantage on, the economy, is now his worst issue. It's not just that he's not doing as well as he was before, but 61% of people polled disapproved of how he's handling inflation. And then the other thing that's happening is that the policies he is pursuing and his administration is pursuing, the revisions on vaccinations, for example, handling of deportations, concerns about democracy. He is not doing well in those issues, right? So he was elected to bring prices down. That's not happening. And then, some of the things that we weren't sure how the public would react to, they're having a bad reaction to. Turns out we like vaccines. Turns out we have concerns when democratic norms are being overridden by the administration. And we have concerns with how he's implementing an immigration strategy. So there's a big thing happening this month with government funding and whether there may be a shutdown headed. Healthcare seems to me to be the most important issue that Democrats could focus on now because it's relevant to the big, beautiful bill. You mentioned that there's going to be states are going to have to be dealing with cuts relative to that, particularly with Medicaid. It's going to result in, and it has in some cases already resulted in, hospitals closing. It means higher medical costs, and I think that is a good place to put effort for the Congress to have their message be around for the continuing resolution funding of the government in this month.
So if I was to ask you how to build the perfect Democratic messaging on the economy, I wonder how you do that. And I ask it in this context because Trump has always been really effective at these short, catchy slogans. Build the wall, drill, baby, drill, no tax on tips. And they embed in people's brains. I go back to when nobody thought he could be president of the United States. He started calling names of his opponents in the Republican primary, right? And low energy Jeb stuck. So what do Democrats do? Or does that underestimate voters?
I think that, I think Trump's biggest problem is that Americans are not feeling it, right? They are worried about inflation. They're worried about tariffs. And in their own lives, they do not see his proposals paying off in the way he promised, right? And in terms of, manufacturing jobs are lower now than they were when Joe Biden was president. I'm not an economist, but I know that it takes a while to build new manufacturing plants in the United States. I don't think that's going to happen by the fourth quarter of this year. So that you're just seeing some kind of measurable difference, even if tariffs were being implemented. So the most important thing that you can't fake is how do people actually feel about the economy, and they're not feeling good. And so I think that the opportunity for the Democrats is to reinforce the truth and what these people are already feeling. He promised that he would lower grocery prices. You're not feeling it. He promised that he would bring manufacturing jobs to the United States. The manufacturing jobs has gone down, and I think that there's levels to. I know there's a lot of frustration about why the Democrats aren't fighting back more, have landed on one message, and I don't think the National Democrats' biggest problem is they don't have any power, right? Democratic governors are popular. They have power. They're able to manage their states. They're able to show how Democrats manage economies when it comes to managing their states. But I think that you can have that argument that the policies are not working. I really believe because in terms if you're thinking about Congress in particular, it's important for the midterms that big, beautiful bill be defined as the dangerous bill that it is for healthcare in particular. I think that is an issue to drive right now. And, it offers you other contrasting opportunities. Like you may have gotten your taxes cut for overtime for now, but it's permanent. The tax cuts for millionaires, that's permanent. So I don't think it's a problem to have multiple streams of arguments, right? We live in a very bifurcated, very diverse media environment. You can be pushing all of these arguments, but I think for Congress, coming out of Washington, their job is make the big, beautiful bill be a problem, make the economic policies, tie the economic policies back to that. So there's some definition and an argument going into 2026.
I'm thinking about a former slogan from a presidential campaign, "Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?" Right? But this is not a presidential campaign next November. So does it necessarily follow, even if people are really unhappy with Donald Trump, that means they'll vote for a Democrat?
It doesn't necessarily follow that. But I think that, we will have, rather than having one Democrat that's sort of a national figure next year, that person will probably emerge as the 2028 presidential primary. You will have capable Democratic candidates waging battles all across the country in the midterm elections, right? So this argument, the sort of political discourse is going to go from this nebulous national question of where the Democrats are to localized races with, the one thing Donald Trump has done is made congressional candidates great, because Democrats have really learned how to run good campaigns during the midterms in particular. Our base is generally more motivated than theirs in midterms. When Trump's not on the ballot, it's been a problem for Republicans. And so, you're going to have that kind of, I don't know that you will see national Democratic standing rise in 2026 if you say, like, what do you think about the National Democratic Party? But you're going to see good candidates running in the midterms that are going to be popular, and then I think are going to win, and they will wage that economic battle. I mean, if you're running for Congress, I think that that is your lane. He said he was going to make things more affordable for you, and he is he is not. And these are the things that the Democrats will do to put him to keep him in a box. And these are the things that we're going to pursue that actually are going to make things make things in your life more affordable.
I think, Jen, one of the takeaways from the Clinton campaign was that pollsters underestimated the appeal of Trump as an outsider. Right? Yes, billionaire, successful, all those things.
Yeah.
But an outsider, somebody who was going to bring change, shake things up. But this poll shows that, at least right now, 58% of adults say they prefer an insider with experience, which I find fascinating. So what should the takeaway be? There are going to be some really interesting primaries, right? And Democrats and Democratic organizations are going to have to decide who to support. Is there something in there they should be looking at as they decide who they should run for contested congressional seats?
I found that, I'm glad you brought that up, because I found that the most interesting stat. I mean, in terms of a practitioner, right, I found that the most interesting stat. Now, if you look at that number, though, those are Democrats. So what's really interesting for Democratic primaries is that I can't remember the number. I'm not sure if you're showing it now. So that's the overall number. But they have, if you looked at, I think it's 75% of Democrats want an insider with experience.
Can somebody just check that number while Jen's talking? Because she's right. We need that number. Go ahead.
So that's going to shake, that as president, that's going to shake things up. So, it's not, I know that there's this view exists that Democrats decide who's going to run and in different seats, but really it's up to the individual candidates to decide if and where they're going to run. People get recruited because we think the party thinks they're going to be the DCCC, the House Democratic Campaign Committee might think they're going to be a particularly strong candidate, and that's going to be.
By the way, it's three-quarters of Democrats. Three-quarters of Democrats.
Right.
So it's extremely applicable to what Democrats decide.
I didn't set my notifications off. Sorry. So yeah, it is. So that's sort of at odds with, I think, sort of conventional wisdom right now with Mondamini's success in New York City, which is, so that's in New York City, I think, partly because he hit on an issue people really care about, because in New York, it's so expensive to live in New York, and how he would try to make it more affordable. And just a very good candidate who's great at campaigning and is very relatable. That doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to want someone, Democrats are going to want someone with his policy views everywhere. But I think it means Democrats are going to want someone that they're certain of, that is more that's in a more moderate, pragmatic lane than someone who's looking to bring a particularly ideological agenda to Congress. I think they're going to want people that are focused on what people are worried about in their economic daily lives, and then also people are worried about democracy. We're told all the time that voters that it was a mistake for Kamala Harris to focus on democracy as an issue, but you see in your poll, it's people's number two concern behind the economy, about what's happening to democratic norms in the country. I'm sure a lot of the people who feel that way are Democrats, but those are the people going to be turning out in the midterms, and so that's obviously a concern too.